Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Taisis Divar Maskal, Allah Amar Rav Yosef Chulu. Let's begin by looking at the flowchart of the Gemara so we could see what Taisis is coming to explain. So here in the Gemara, we had a question. Why in our Mishnah are the Ani and Balabayas Chayev, the Malacha of Eitzah or Achnasa, if in each and every case either the Akira was done from the hand of the other person or the Anacha was done into the hand of the other person. And the hand of a person is not Dalit al Dalit, and we know that it's needed to be an area of Dalit al Dalit for the Akira and the Anacha. So Tosfos is going to focus on the answers of Rabba and Rav Yosef. Let's start with the general outline of Tosfos. In the Gemara, we presented the answers of Rabba and Rav Yosef as to why in our Mishnah the Ani and Balabayas are chayiv, even though they don't have an area that's Dalit al Dalit for the Akira and the Anacha. So Tosfos is going to ask why Rabba and Rav Yosef couldn't have answered it based on an opinion that there is elsewhere. In other words, they could have answered it differently than they did. They answered either it's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva or it follows the opinion of Rabbi. Tosfos is an ask that we actually find that Rabba and Rav Yosef hold elsewhere of a certain concept that could have answered the question over here. So why didn't they use that to answer the question? And Tosfos is going to give one answer. He's going to explain that answer, and he's going to address a question on that answer. So let's see the Tosfos now in the flowchart form. In our Gemara, we presented the answers of Rabba and Rav Yosef as to why in our Mishnah the Ani and Balabayas are chayiv, even though the Akira or the Anacha don't have an area that's Dalit al Dalit. So Tosfos presents a question of the Rashba. He asks, why do Rabba and Rav Yosef need to answer it in such a way that our Mishnah doesn't follow all opinions? Rabba says it follows Rabbi Akiva, but it doesn't follow the Rabbanan. Rav Yosef says it follows Rabbi, but once again, it doesn't follow the Rabbanan. Why don't they give an answer based on what they say elsewhere that would fit with all opinions? And that is that Rabba and Rav Yosef both hold machshavti mishavi leimokim. A person's mind gives the area the status and importance as if it's Dalit al Dalit. And in our case, we could say the same thing, being that the person did the Akira from the other person's hand, or the Anacha into the other person's hand. That reflects that he considers the person's hand an area that he wants to use as the place where he makes the Akira from, or the Anacha into, and being that that's what he wants, it receives the status as if it's an area that's Dalit al Dalit. Now, where do we see that Rabba and Rav Yosef hold this? It's a Gemara in Eruvin. Where do we see it? So Tosfos presents that. And now it's in an arrow because it's just completing the question, it's upholding the question. It says in the Gemara in Eruvin, Rabbi Yosef said that if a person urinated or spit, he's chayiv chatas. So if he urinated or spit from one area to another area, he's chayiv to bring a carbon chatas. And the Gemara asks, but we need an area that's 4x4. And when a person urinates or spits, the akira is not from an area that's 4x4. And the Gemara answers, machshavti mishavi l'makim. His mind gives it the status as if it's 4x4, and the way we understand that is that what it's saying is that since he wants to urinate and he wants to spit from the area that he urinated or spit from, therefore that place receives the status as if it's Dalit al Dalit. So say the same thing in our Mishnah. And the Gemara over there continues and says, the Eloi Teimahachi, if we don't say this, if we don't say Machshavtim Mishav Makim, it's not just going to be a question on Rav Yosef, that he holds that if a person urinates or spits, he's chayiv. It's also a question on Rabba, because Rabba holds that if somebody threw an item into the mouth of a dog or into a fire, he's chayiv. And once again, we can ask the same question. In those cases, the hanacha is not into an area that's 4x4. Therefore, we must say, says the Gemara, machshavtin mishavile makim. So we see by Rav Yosef, machshavtin mishavile makim, regarding the makim akira, the place where the akira was done from, and by Rabba we see it regarding the makim anacha, the place where the anacha was done to. And therefore, the Tosfos is asking, why didn't Rabba and Rav Yosef answer this in our Gemara? That in our Mishnah, the reason why the Ani and Balabayas are chayiv, even though the Akira or the Anacha didn't have an area that's Dalit al Dalit, because Machshavtim Meshavid and Mokim. And Tosfos answers, it's an answer by Rabbeinu Tam, that when we say Machshavtim Meshavid and Mokim is only when the person wanted it specifically in that way. It's not that he decided he wanted it that way, but another way would have been just as good. He just chose this way. Machshavtim Meshav L'Mokim means if the person wants it specifically in the manner that it's being done, then it receives the status of Dalit al Dalit. And therefore it doesn't resolve our Mishnah, because there's no reason to think that in our Mishnah it specifically needed to be done from the hand of the other person or to the hand of the other person. The goal was to either take the item or give the item. But there wasn't any need for it to be specifically from the hand or to the hand of the other person. Now Tosfos is so the answer basically is that Machshavtim Meshav L'Makim is only if the person wants it specifically in that way, and therefore it doesn't answer our Mishnah. And that's why Rabba and Rav Yosef needed to give alternative answers. Now Tosfos is going to explain this answer and support it. Like by urinating and spitting. Over there, the Akira could only be done in that way the person's urinating or spitting from an area that's not dalad al dalad. We say machshavta mishav makim because he wants it specifically in that way, since there's no other way to do it. And so too, when the person threw the item befi kelev or into the into the fire, he wanted to throw it there because that's where he specifically wanted the item. He wanted to either feed the dog or burn the item. Tosfos here goes to a side point and says that according to this, we need to say zarak befi kelev. He threw it into the mouth of the dog, which reflects that he wanted it in the mouth of the dog. And then it says that he's chayiv. But we shouldn't read it zarak v'noch befi kelev, because v'noch seems to imply, and it rested in the mouth of a dog. It's not where he wanted it. And according to what we're saying now, but in the case of zarak v'noch befi kelev, the person would be putter, because if somebody threw something and it happened to fall to the mouth of a dog, but he didn't want it there, then he wouldn't be chayiv, since the hanocha is not an area that's dalad al dalad. And Tosfos completes it, but over here he doesn't care if he places it in the hand of the person or in a type of basket. The goal is simply to remove it from the other person or to give it to the other person. And the person who's doing that act doesn't have a need for it to be specifically from the hand of the other person or into the hand of the other person. So here we have the answer of Tosfos and the explanation of the answer, and then we have the side point that's addressed. And now Tosfos is in response to a question on this answer. Tosfos says this, that later on the Gemara explains that although we learned in our Mishnah that when a person placed it into other person's hand, he's chayiv, we wouldn't necessarily know that if a person threw an item and it happened to fall into another person's hand, that he's chayiv, because we would distinguish and say that maybe in our Mishnah is chayiv because achshav aliyadei, he knew it was going into the other person's hand. He gave it importance. That's why it's considered dalad al dalad. However, when he threw it and it happened to fall into the other person's hand, he wasn't machshav his hand. It's not considered dalad al dalad. So this seems to contradict what we're saying here, because in the Gemara over there it says if his machshav his hand is considered dalad al dalad, even though the person doesn't need it specifically there. So in the Gemara over there it seems to show that machshav, the hand, makes it dalad al dalad, even if he doesn't want it specifically there. And here we're saying that when is achshava, that when a person is machshav the place, does it become considered dalad al dalad? It's specifically if he wants it in that place and no other place. Says Tosfos, what we're saying over here is in general, if an area is not dalad al dalad in any way, shape, or form, then in order for achshava to make it considered dalad al dalad 4x4, it has to be that the person wants it in that manner and no other manner. He wants it specifically and exactly that way. However, the Gemara later on is referring to a person's hand, which we know that yadish adam chashuv dalad al dalad. Person's hand's already considered dalad al dalad. The Gemara over there wants to say that maybe when would we actually accord it the status of dalad al dalad is if the person intended to put it there. It already has dalad al dalad. We might think that it's needed one more condition, that he should want it to be there. However, in a case where the person didn't want it to be into the hand of the other, he just threw it and happened to rest there, then we might say that although yadish adam chashuv dalad al dalad, since the person didn't intend for it to go there, maybe it's not considered dalad al dalad. The Gemara responds over there that that's not the case. Rather, yadish adam chashuv dalad al dalad, person's hands considered to be 4x4, and it's just a given thing, regardless of whether the person knew it's going to go into the other's hand or not. So just to summarize the Tosfos, we asked, why don't Rabban Rav Yosef explain that in our Mishnah, the reason why it's chayiv, even though the hand of a person is not dalad al dalad, is because achshav alayadeh, because the person wanted it in the hand. He took the akira from the hand, he did anach into the hand. We know that Rabban Rav Yosef hold of this idea of achshava. Tosfos explains that achshava, to accord a place dalad al dalad, is exclusive to when the person wants it specifically to be done in that manner. But in our Mishnah, where the person didn't need to make the akira from the other person's hand or into his hand, he could have just as well done the akira from a basket or from the ground, and the anacha into a basket or onto the ground. Then the power of achshava does not make it that the area should be considered dalad al dalad, and that's why we have our question: why in our Mishnah are they chayiv if the akira is not from an area that's dalad al dalad, or the anacha is not to an area that's dalad al dalad?